you drill down, you find those primitives, often very abstract primitives, that are underneath the big blobby mess, and then you build back up again, and then you realize it isn't so big and blobby after all. There's actually ways you can structure it and ways you can make a lot of progress in understanding what's going on and building useful things from it. And that's been, for me personally, that's been very much my personal sort of discovery and invention workflow. So, but I think it's a fair observation that this sort of downgrading of the tool builders, at least by the quotes intellectuals. I mean, to be clear, tool building is a deeply intellectual activity, just a little different from the kind of intellectual activity that is the things that people write academic papers about. I mean, I would say that, for example, the language design process is, I worked on a bunch of intellectually fairly demanding things. That is probably the single most uniformly intellectually demanding thing that I've ever tried to do. And I've been doing it now for 40 years. So I've developed some ability to do it by this point. I noticed this from memes. Computational language design is being a modern day wizard. Yeah, you're defining, well, people don't yet understand the importance of it. I mean, one day people will understand, because it is the framework that defines how one thinks about things. And that's kind of the most upstream kind of thing in intellectual work, is to define the framework for thinking about things. And it's a very general, kind of very broad way of doing that. In talking about modern times wizardry, one of my kids had a computer disaster day before yesterday, and I was talking to them on the phone about a computer that just refused to charge from the power outlets and so on. And I'm realizing, I'm looking up, how do you reset the what is it called? Memory controller, I think, on a Mac, the SMC thing on a Mac. How do you reset the non-volatile RAM and things like this? And it's just crazy, because the things you do, you hold down 3 keys and then you press another key for 7 seconds, and you're doing these other things, you're letting things up. This is, if somebody said, what do the shamans do? What do the what do the kind of incantations of old by the wizards and witches and so on, what were those all about? It's like, just see the modern engineering design of computers and their boot sequences and things, and that is sort of the modern version of this. And it really is quite a strange thing. I mean, it's kind of like an incomprehensible thing, that holding down that combination of keys while the thing is booting, when it's doing this for some number of seconds, it's kind of, I just find it interesting that there are these processes and phenomena that are just sort of have arisen many times in the history of in human history, and that they have such similarity, and that they're now obviously there is a certain resonance of, we know it was done that way historically, but there's also a certain resonance of, we're still humans, and we still sort of are biologically very much the same as we were 100,000, 200,000 years ago. And so there are certain things that sort of are natural to us based on our biology, so to speak. Anyway, I don't know whether, I'm not sure I can quite tie it all the way from the weird key combinations for booting Macs in safe mode or something, and versus the incantations of when you have this big cauldron that you're pouring things into.